The first snow had just started to fall when Elias returned to the town. Not much of it, just a few quiet flakes drifting through the dusk, melting the moment they touched the ground. He walked slowly along the empty road that led toward the valley. The air carried that faint metallic scent of cold, the kind that clings to breath and memory. He hadn't seen this place in decades, not since he was a boy. The town lay ahead, tucked between low hills and a thin, silver river. From here, it looked almost unchanged, the same curve of rooftops, the same church spire rising from the mist. But the silence around it felt different, heavier, like a long-forgotten song. He crossed the small wooden bridge, boots creaking against the old planks. The river below moved slow, almost still, carrying bits of light in its dark current. He stopped halfway, leaning on the railing. Watching the water, when he was young, he used to throw pebbles here and count the ripples, pretending each circle was a year passing. His father had once told him that time and water were made of the same thing, always moving, never holding shape. Now, looking down, he wondered how many circles had passed since that last stone. He smiled faintly. Maybe too many to count. The street beyond the bridge was quiet. The houses leaned inward, their windows fogged with warmth from inside. Smoke curled from chimneys. Somewhere, faint music played, an old tune, drifting in and out of the wind. He followed it, letting the sound guide him through narrow lanes until he reached the square. It was smaller than he remembered. The fountain in the center was dry, dusted with snow. A single streetlight glowed above it, throwing a tired yellow circle onto the cobblestones. He looked around. The bakery was gone. The tailor's shop too. But across from the fountain, the little inn was still there, its sign faded, its door crooked but familiar. He stepped inside. Warmth met him like a held breath. A wood stove hummed in the corner. The air smelled of pine and something sweet, maybe apples. An older woman stood behind the counter, her hair streaked with silver, her face calm in the firelight. She looked up, studying him for a moment. "You've come far," she said. Her voice was soft, like the sound of wool brushing wood. He nodded. "Too far, maybe. Rooms are still the same. Second floor, third door. The one with the river view." He hesitated. "You remember me." Her eyes warmed. The river remembers everyone who's ever left. He didn't know what to say, so he just smiled back quietly and took the key. Upstairs, the hallway smelled of dust and cedar. He opened the door and stepped into the room. It was small but gentle. The bed tucked neatly against the wall, a lamp flickering beside it, and the window facing the river below. He sat down on the edge of the bed, looking out through the glass. The river shimmered faintly in the moonlight, winding through the valley like a line drawn by memory itself. He whispered to no one, "I thought you'd be gone." But the river kept moving, slow, steady, as if answering, "I was always here." Elias woke before sunrise. For a while, he just lay there, listening to the soft ticking of the old wall clock. Each sound felt like a drop of time hitting water, slow, spaced apart, steady. The air held a quiet chill, but the kind that sharpened thought. He got up, wrapped his scarf around his neck, and opened the window. Outside, mist hung low over the river. The sky hadn't decided yet if it wanted to be morning or night. Between the fog and faint silver light, the whole town looked like a half-remembered dream. He could smell bread baking somewhere far off. That simple, grounding smell tugged something deep in him, a memory he couldn't quite place. He left the inn quietly, wanting to disturb anyone. The streets were empty, except for a stray cat moving across the square, tail cutting through the mist. He walked without direction at first, just letting his steps take him where they wanted. His shoes echoed lightly on the cobblestones. Every corner turned felt like walking into a photograph that someone had folded and forgotten in a drawer at the edge of town. He found the old schoolhouse. Its wooden doors were locked, but the paint still carried faint traces of blue. Through the cracked windows, he could see the blackboard, a few broken desks, and a paper crane lying on the floor. He didn't remember ever learning to make one, but somehow he knew he had. Maybe a girl from his class had shown him once, someone with hair like sunlight through dust, who laughed easily, whose name now sat on the tip of his tongue, but wouldn't come. He stayed there a long time, watching the crane shift slightly in the draft. Then, before leaving, he reached through the gap and picked it up, folding its wings gently back into place. The road curved away toward the hills after that. It led to the old orchard, the one his father used to work in every spring. He followed it slowly, feeling the ground change underfoot, dirt, then grass, then the soft crunch of frozen leaves. The trees stood quiet now, bare and still. Their branches reached out like black veins against the gray sky. He touched one of them, brushing his fingers along the bark. It was rough, but warm under his palm, as if holding a faint pulse. In that moment, something strange happened. The wind moved, just a breath, and for a single second, the orchard wasn't empty. He heard laughter, not loud, but familiar. Children running, a dog barking, his father calling out to someone unseen. It all came and went so quickly that he almost thought he'd imagined it. But when he looked down, a small red apple lay by his boot, fresh, not frozen. He knelt to pick it up, staring at its skin. The air felt still again, silent. He turned it over in his hand and smiled softly. "All right," he murmured. "I understand." He didn't know what he meant by that. Maybe that time didn't end here. It only folded over itself. Maybe that some places kept pieces of you long after you'd gone. He placed the apple on a low branch and walked back toward town behind him. The fog was beginning to lift, and though he didn't see it, one tree, the same one he'd touched, shimmered faintly with frost that glowed like quiet light. Asterisk. By the time Elias reached the inn again, the sun was sliding through the clouds, pale, cold, but gentle. He sat by the window in a small dining room, sipping tea that tasted faintly of herbs. The woman from last night moved quietly behind the counter, humming to herself. She looked over at him once and said, "You're seeing the old places, aren't you?" He nodded, trying to. "Though they don't all remember me." "They do," she said softly, setting down a plate of bread and honey. "Just in their own way. The river keeps the memory, but people need time to hear it again." He didn't ask what she meant. He didn't need to. The warmth in her tone felt enough. Later, when the sky turned a brighter kind of gray, Elias left again. He walked toward the northern edge of town, the path that curved past the mill and led up a small rise. At the top stood his childhood home. He hadn't seen it since the day they left. Back then, his father's hands had been shaking. His mother had tried not to cry, and the boy he'd been didn't yet understand how heavy goodbyes could grow with time. The gate still hung crooked on one hinge. He pushed it open, and the sound it made, that low creak, brought back everything at once. The smell of wood smoke, the sound of his mother's voice calling him in from the yard, the hum of summer insects along the fence. He stood there a long while before stepping inside. The door wasn't locked. It drifted open easily, as though expecting him. Inside, dust drifted in long, lazy columns of light. The air smelled faintly of pine and old fabric. Everything was still there, at least in shape. The table, the shelf, the chair by the window. He walked slowly across the floorboard, each one giving a quiet sigh under his feet. On the mantel, he saw something that shouldn't have been there. A small jar, half filled with river stones. Smooth, gray, rounded. He knew those stones. He used to collect them as a boy and leave them in his pockets until his mother found them while washing clothes. He picked up the jar carefully, brushing away the dust on its lid. A note was tucked underneath it, brittle and yellowed with age. He unfolded it slowly, afraid it might fall apart. The handwriting was unmistakable. His mother's dot said, "For when you come back." The river doesn't forget. He sat down in the old chair, holding the paper against his chest. His throat tightened, but no tears came, just that deep ache, the kind that holds both love and silence at once. Through the window, the river glinted faintly in the distance. He thought of his mother writing this long ago, maybe believing he'd return someday, maybe knowing. He stayed there until the light faded. When he finally stood up, he took one stone from the jar and slipped it into his pocket. Outside, the wind moved softly through the grass. Somewhere far off, church bells rang slow, steady, familiar. He turned toward the sound and started walking back to town. The stone in his pocket felt warm, though his hands were cold. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The window let in a slice of moonlight that lay across the floor like a pale river. He watched it for a long time, feeling the silence settle over him. Layer by layer, the jar, the note, the apple, all of it lingered in his mind. None of it felt strange exactly, just expected in a way he couldn't explain. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. He could hear the faint creak of the inn's old beams, the whisper of the river beyond the walls. At some point, he closed his eyes. When he woke, the light was soft and white. Snow had finally fallen overnight. A thin layer covered the rooftops and lay smooth on the cobblestones below. The whole town looked slowed down, like a breath held between moments. He dressed and went downstairs. The woman behind the counter greeted him with that same quiet nod. "You're still here," she said. "Seems so," he replied. "Then the town isn't finished with you yet." Her words carried no mystery, just calm certainty. Elias didn't ask. He simply smiled faintly and stepped back out into the cold. He decided to walk toward the river again. Snowflakes fell lazily, catching in his hair and melting on his coat. The world felt muffled, as if all the sharp edges had been softened overnight. When he reached the bridge, he stopped in the middle and leaned against the railing. The water moved slow beneath the thin sheet of ice. That same faint shimmer followed it, light bending strangely in the current. As he watched, something caught his eye. A paper boat, small and white, drifting along the edge of the riverbank. He frowned. It was impossible. The current should have carried it away, yet it seemed to be moving against the flow, gliding toward him instead. When it reached the bridge, it turned slowly in the water, bumping gently against the wooden support beam. Elias knelt down and picked it up. Inside, written in pencil, were 5 words: "Welcome home, little dreamer." He stared at it for a long moment, heart quiet, thoughts slow. Then he laughed softly under his breath, the kind of laugh that holds both wonder and ache. the wind shifted. And for a moment, he thought he heard something behind him, the sound of children's footsteps, faint and distant. When he turned, there was no one there, just his own tracks in the snow. Still, the air carried a warmth that hadn't been there before. He walked the length of the river after that, following its slow curve through the town. Everywhere he went, he noticed little things. A swing in the park, swaying gently, though no wind touched it. A single lantern glowing near the church, even though its flame had gone out long ago. And near the old square, a chalk drawing of a boy and a river on the wall. Simple, childlike, but unmistakably his. He stood in front of it for a long while, snow gathering on his shoulders. Then he whispered, almost shyly, "I remember you too." But the air around him seemed to breathe in answer, slow, content, alive. He started walking again, holding the paper boat carefully in his gloved hand. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the strange certainty that this town wasn't haunted. It was listening. By evening, the snow had stopped. The sky had turned pale gold, the color of candlelight behind thin curtains. Elias walked slowly through the square, the paper boat still tucked in his coat pocket, the stone from his mother's jar in the other. The town was quieter than ever, but not empty. There was a sense of presence in the stillness, like someone just beyond sight, moving with him. He crossed the bridge again as the light dimmed. The river shimmered with a faint reflection of lamps from the houses. Thin trails of smoke rose from chimneys, bending with the breeze. He stopped halfway, resting his hand on the railing. He could feel something inside him shifting, that quiet blend of memory and recognition that made it hard to tell the past from the present. Somewhere nearby, he heard footsteps, slow, steady, approaching from the far side of the bridge. He looked up. An old man was walking toward him, though calling him old felt wrong somehow. His hair was white, his coat long and simple, his eyes carrying that same calm, unbothered light the river had. When he reached Elias, he smiled gently. "You found your way back," he said. Elias hesitated. "I don't think I remember you." "That's all right. I remember you." The man leaned on the railing beside him. They stood together in silence for a while, watching the slow drift of the water. After a moment, Elias said quietly, "This town, it feels different, like it's still alive, even without anyone in it." The man nodded. "It is. Every place keeps a pulse, small, steady. You just have to stand still long enough to hear it again." Elias thought of the paper crane, the apple, the jar of stones. "Then all of this is the town remembering you as you remember it," the man finished. "Memories don't fade. They just wait. Sometimes they wait a lifetime. He turned to face Elias fully. His expression was kind, but deep, like looking at something both real and not quite real. "Tell me," he said, "do you still have your stone?" Elias nodded and pulled it from his pocket. It was warm against his palm, even in the cold air. "Then, tomorrow," the man said, "take it to the river. Let it go. When you do, it'll remember the shape of your hand forever." Elias looked down at the stone again, his reflection dim on its smooth surface. He wanted to ask the man's name, but when he looked up, he was gone. Only the snow falling again, soft and soundless. He stood there a while, unsure if he'd dreamed it. Then he looked at the river and thought he saw, just for a second, two sets of footprints side by side on the bridge. Before the snow covered them, he went back to the inn quietly that night. The woman by the counter didn't ask anything, just nodded as he passed. In his room, he sat by the window again, watching the slow dance of the snow. He set the stone on the sill, the paper boat beside it. Then he whispered, "Tomorrow, I'll let you go." The river outside shimmered faintly in the moonlight, like it had been waiting to hear that dot, and for the first time in years, Elias fell asleep without the weight of time pressing on his chest. Morning came soft and silver, the kind of light that doesn't wake you right away, but slowly pulls you out of sleep like a tide. Elias sat on the edge of the bed for a while, listening to the world stretch into day, the faint groan of floorboards below, the kettle whistling somewhere in the kitchen, the river moving beyond the window. He reached for the stone. It was still there, resting on the sill beside the folded paper boat. He held it in his hand, turning it over slowly, feeling the familiar weight. It was warm again, always warm. He slipped both into his coat pocket and stepped outside. The air carried that bright chill after snow. The streets were clean and white. Every roof and fence softened under a thin layer of frost. His boots left quiet marks as he walked toward the bridge. The river waited below, dark and steady, curling through the heart of the valley like a living thread. Mist clung to its surface, rising in thin curls that caught the sunlight. Elias stopped where he had stood so many times before, the same spot where he'd thrown pebbles as a boy, the same wood railing his hands had rested on 40 years ago. He took out the stone and the paper boat, holding one in each hand. "This is for you," he said quietly. He wasn't sure if he was speaking to the town, or the river, or to the years themselves. Maybe to all of them. He placed the paper boat on the surface first. It floated easily, spinning once before drifting away with the slow current. Then he held the stone above the water. He hesitated for a moment, feeling a sudden warmth in his chest, a mix of grief, peace, and something else he couldn't name. Then he let it fall. The sound was soft, barely a splash. For a long moment, the river was still. Then, just as he turned to leave, light broke through the clouds. It wasn't bright or sudden, just a gentle gleam falling across the water like breath. The current shimmered, and for a second, Elias could see shapes moving beneath the surface, faces, laughter, fragments of sunlight, the orchard, his home, his mother's hands. It was as if the river had kept all of it safe, every sound, every day, every goodbye, waiting for him to come back and see it one last time. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the light had softened and everything looked ordinary once more. But the ache in his chest had changed. It wasn't heavy now. It was quiet, open, still. He whispered, "Thank you." And the wind seemed to carry it away downstream. That evening, he packed his things at the inn. The woman at the counter didn't ask where he was going. She just handed him a small envelope. Inside was a single river stone, smooth, gray, and warm to the touch. She smiled softly. "The river always gives one back." Elias nodded. "Then maybe I'll visit again." "Not maybe," she said. "You will. Just not the same way." He left the town as the sun set behind the hills. The road curved away gently, the air filled with a faint hum of water. When he reached the ridge, he turned once more to look back. Smoke rose from a few chimneys. Snow glowed faintly gold in the last of the light. The river ran through it all, steady and endless. He stood there, hand in his pocket, feeling the new stone resting against his palm. Then he smiled quietly and kept walking, quietly and kept walking.